George Mladenov. King George, welcome into the weeds, mate.
Well, thank you for having me, the Honourable Jeremy Buckingham. What an absolute delight.
Much dishonoured. Hey, look, it's an absolute
Do you
treat.
ever use the title, the Honourable?
Oh, all the time.
Is that on like your passport? And then when someone makes a public announcement like a club, are they
I
like,
demand
is the Honourable Jeremy Buckingham here?
Yes, that's right. It is. I use it everywhere. I've got on my business card. I've got in front of my house.
In front of your house.
There, I've got it, the Honourable MLC.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem at all. Yeah, I'm Jeremy Buckingham, MLC, and people think you're selling insurance. They don't know what you are. I say I'm a senator, and they just go, "What? That can't be true." The collapse of democracy writ large in me. But look, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on. I'm a huge fan of you.
Thank you.
I think you're a very, very, very clever stick, and I want to find out about you because you've got an incredibly interesting backstory.
Mm-hmm.
George, where are you from? I know you're from Bankstown. Tell us about growing up in Bankstown, coming from a tight-knit Greek Macedonian community. What it was like coming up.
I am very fortunate, like a lot of people in Bankstown are, that when you grow up in Bankstown, what you don't realise at the time when you kind of like at the local school, Bankstown Public School, that I attended, and I attended the local Catholic high school, Larsell Catholic College. What you don't realise when you see things in other parts of Sydney, because that's where we're from, and you go, oh, the grass always looks greener on the other side. But when you kind of hit your late 20s and early 30s, and I'm 35 now, you don't realise that childhood in Bankstown really instills important things in terms of life experience that you just can't buy. And in the journey of life, when you grow up in Bankstown, you become street smart, you get fantastic intuition, you have great family values, you have one of the strongest sense of mateship that you could ever imagine, which is a grand irony because most people in Bankstown are either first, second or third generation Australians. And you have a real close-knit sense of community. And when I had the chance to kind of like present myself at that very, actually it was the second TV audition I did when I applied for Australian Survivor Brains v Brawn back in 2020, I knew that one of the key focal points for me in terms of selling points is that I am George from Bankstown. The other one was political operative George, given what I was doing in the Labor Party at the time. I used to work for Tanya Mihalik when she was the member for Bankstown and a shadow minister. And for something like 7 or 8 years, I was heavily involved in local Labor Party branches there. And I was the president of the State Electoral Council for the Bankstown electorate and a state conference delegate. And
Which is a big deal because, Bankstown is Labor Party heartland. I mean, that's where Paul Keating came from.
Of course.
It's where John Howard came from as well. And it is sort of the epicenter of Labor politics in Australia, isn't it?
It is. It's really
to be good, to be involved and good there.
Yeah.
You have to be a pretty good operator. Be a good networker.
I used to love hearing the old Keating stories. There was this there was this one branch member. He was like a life member of the Labor Party. His name was Claude Killick. He was the president of Condell Park branch.
I'm just going to bring this round a bit more, mate. So pick you up. Yep, that's good.
Yeah. So Claude Killick knew Keating because he was Keating's next door neighbour. So every time I would drive to a Condell Park branch meeting with Claude, he would tell me all these old Keating stories. And then, like, one of the most fascinating Keating stories that I heard, and this is real kind of like old school Labor, but it's just an interesting story. So there was going to be an AGM at Condell Park branch. I think it would have been in the 70s or the 80s. And then in one of the rare times, Keating apparently didn't have the numbers at the time. And they were going to do the AGM and then poof, out of the blue, the lights went off at Club Condell Park, and I got told that Keating handed off the branch attendance book to a different local branch member who got on a motorbike and sped the fuck out of there. And then I'm just like...
flick the switch.
And then it's just like, where's the book gone? Who knows? Keating made sure it was gone. So it's just like... it's a very kind of like interesting Labor Party experience that you get in Bankstown, and I've lived through it all. And it really kind of like when I look at what worked for me on Survivor in terms of my ability to come up with a plan, to come up with a compromise, to make sure that I've done all the steps I've needed to make sure that the plan works, to make sure that I have the numbers. I think, ironically, what birthed King George was my 10 odd years of Labor Party branch politics out in Bankstown.
Well, we'll get to that in due course, because what about as a kid? Like, what were you like as a kid? Like,
I think I was very kind of like boring as a kid.
Really?
Which is ironic for me, Jeremy. I went to school, I played soccer on the weekends, and I didn't do anything much else.
You didn't get into trouble, or you didn't have to get you out of yourself?
No, I came first in every class, you know. Did I try at school? No, to be honest with you. I think in high school, what was I known for? I was known for walking in with a bag of Maccas from Bankstown Maccas and 3 or 4 cans of Red Bull. People would copy my homework that I'd start at 8:20 and the class started at 8:32 at Larsell Catholic College at the Benilde building.
You were trading your answers off?
No, I'm like, everyone just get around and start doing what I'm doing.
Yeah,
and then you just go on with the flow. So didn't do anything particularly exciting in my childhood, apart from work, like do my schoolwork. And then you kind of like, you grow into your skin. And I think I probably grew into my skin in my mid-20s. Like if I think back to like my teen years when I was a young adult, like from 18 to 22 or 3, all I really did was go to uni, work the part-time job that I would have had at the time.
What did you study at uni?
Law. Yeah, and I've been admitted as a solicitor and barrister in New South Wales, and I paid $60,000 to use that wonderful title of I am a lawyer.
Have you ever practiced law?
No, I haven't practiced law because as the universe kind of happens in strange and mysterious ways, I joined the Labor Party when I was 15 on my own accord.
Really? Really? How did that happen? You just woke up one morning? Was there something happening?
I think I was in year 9 or year 10. I was at Larsell in Bankstown, my old high school, and I just woke up one night and joined the Labor Party. And in a strange sequence of events, there was kind of like a lot of kind of sliding doors and paths that never happened. The first one was Daryl Mellum, the former member for Banks, sent me a branch meeting notice when I was 16 because my house in Bankstown always gets redistributed from Banks to Blaxland and Watson. So did I go to a Daryl Mellum Labor Party meeting? No, which would have been very interesting because I would have gone down a very different path in terms of where I used to fit in the Labor Party back in the day.
Where was he, in the left? Was he?
Soft left.
Soft left.
Yeah. So then the former member for Bankstown, Tony Stewart, never met him. He never called, never came to my school once. I represented my school at the state parliament at a constitutional convention. I was the Bankstown electorate rep. Did I hear from Tony Stewart? No, not once.
So you're involved in student politics?
No, never.
Never?
No,
you were just a rep of your school because you were a Ducks or...
I was just interested in politics.
Yeah, right.
I've always been passionate about Bankstown, but the one thing I've never done was student politics because I did my law degree at University of Western Sydney, and it's just...
They don't have politics.
They don't have politics.
Sydney Uni.
You're kind of more focused on like issues. So it's like I never heard from Tony Stewart, and then ironically, the person that replaced Paul Keating as the member for Blaxland, Michael Haddon, again, never thought of calling this new branch member once. And then very sadly, in terms of like the lack of work ethic that is a problem for some people in the Labor Party, even still now out my way in Bankstown, is Michael Haddon never visited my primary school or my high school.
And you noted it. You thought, hey, I'm involved, I'm a member, just waiting to get engaged. Yeah.
Waiting to get a phone call. So in this like strange sequence of events, I was a Labor Party member, but I was not activated, if you want to kind of, I never attended a branch meeting. And then kind of like I went to university. There was no young Labor club that I can recall where I did my law units at Campbelltown at Parramatta. And then very randomly, the first person in the Labor Party to call me was somebody that was working for Tony Burke. in the Watson electorate office, because by then I'd been redistributed a third time. This was when I was probably like 19 or 20, and then I got a phone call and I was so excited. I was like, wow, somebody's finally reached out. It's Tony Burke.
And it was Tony Burke?
No, it wasn't Tony. It was his. It was one of his staff members at the time. They're like, "Would you like to come to the corner of Greenacre Road and Stacey Street and be in the background for a photo?" And I was like, "This is the best thing ever."
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I would love to do this. So I rock up there, and then everybody was there. All the Labor apparatchiks were there. So the mayor was there. The new member for Bankstown was there. Tony Burke was there. Jason Clare was there. And then in the grand irony, in terms of like the scheme of the world, the one person who really had a decent conversation with me was the member for Bankstown at the time, Tanya Mihalik. And then I kind of like went down that rabbit hole in the
It's amazing how that works, like that, that interpersonal relationship. One decent conversation with people can really switch people on. If you're an active listener, if you're engaged with people, Tanya's a great communicator. She really is. And you can tell she's listening to you when you talk to her. I remember I got a postcard from, I'd volunteered for the Greens once, and I got a postcard from Bob Brown. Just like, it was a Christmas card. And it was just like,
they're the most important things.
Yeah, it was just like, thanks for helping out Bob Brown. And I was like, oh, I'm such a big deal. I got it framed.
Do you know what? It's those little things.
And I joined the party and like was, just a loyal servant for decades, just on the basis of one little...
It's so important, Jeremy, because MPs that work hard at their jobs succeed at their jobs. And there's different ways of measuring the success in politics. So in terms of internal politics, you need to have a relationship with your branch members and your party volunteers and whatnot. It's bare minimum. I think what I lived through when I was a teenager and nobody spoke to me was because those MPs were lazy. They were MPs where the primary Labor vote at the time was probably having a 7 or an 8 in front of it.
Yeah.
The decline in those safe areas hadn't started yet, and people didn't need to work hard to keep their jobs. They knew they could wake up, put some clothes on, do whatever they did in Parliament at the time as backbenchers and not need to lift a finger, either internally in terms of party politics or, sadly, for my community of Bankstown, in terms of actually delivering social infrastructure or wins for the local residents.
And is that what really motivated you? Because I get a sense that it was your local community that you were
110%.
really connected to.
110%.
I mean, they're calling, the king of Bankstown, King George. I call you the Machiavelli of Moorebank. Thank you.
Not quite the same community, but close.
Well,
on the other side of the Georges River.
Yeah, but, the alliteration there. But it was local politics.
It definitely was.
And what was it about local? Is it a lack of services? Was it, you weren't getting a dangerous road fixed? The public school, was on demountables? What was it?
I still think to this very day, it saddens me that Bankstown doesn't get its fair share of resources. And we're in a federal election period now, Jeremy. And what has been promised for the electorates of Blaxland and Watson by either of the major parties? I can tell you, it's a big, fat fucking diddly zero. Do we get the major road infrastructure upgrade at Stacey Street, the 4th most congested road in all of Australia and New Zealand? No. No, we don't. Do we look at our local schools? We have fantastic schools being built, and rightfully so, here in New South Wales. But does anything happen in the electorate of Bankstown or Watson or Blaxland, pre and post federal redistribution? No. Like, we get this kind of like piecemeal promise of a $1.3 billion new Bankstown Lidcombe Hospital, which was a last-minute election commitment in 2019 by the former coalition government to win the seat of East Hills, and it worked. It won the seat of East Hills. But I'm sitting down, when I wake up every single morning in Bankstown, 6 years later, we don't have a plan for the hospital, we don't have a business case. When you find out during budget estimates, there's not even enough money allocating that $1.3 billion to build a hospital or the TAFE. So it's very frustrating for me as someone that was so heavily involved in the Labor Party.
That's a really interesting one, Tafe, because it's a big industrial heartland too. There's so much manufacturing, a big industrial sector there, and there's all this talk about skills.
There is, but like, what's disappointing for me, like sometimes it comes down to the little nitty gritty issues from day to day that impact the quality of life of local residents, and Bankstown has a very unique demographic. It's very high in terms of unemployment. We've got the 5th highest unemployment at the state level. It's something like 11.3%.
Really?
And there are various different
That's
factors
shocking.
why it impacts that. But when you look at kind of like the number of people from the broader Bankstown region that go to university, it's one of the lowest in the state. And we've got some of the highest number of people, whether they're Australian or people that have migrated to Australia and they don't have citizenship yet, but like the highest number of first and second generation Australians with a person born overseas. So we have this matrix that has built our community identity, but still to this very day, I am overly frustrated by the fact that we just don't get our fair share of resources because it's not kind of like marginal to either the Liberal Party or the Labor Party. And I hope that changes. I hope that changes with generations. I sometimes feel disappointed in myself that like I closed the chapter in my life when I was inside the party to make people care within the Labor Party. But I sometimes tell myself it will change with time.
I think it will. I think that what you're saying now is part of that. It's a big it's a shot across the bows. It's a massive warning for Labor that they can't take these heartland seats. Like, they're worried about seats like Werriwa at this federal election, and also, we've seen a diverse group of voices rise and run in these seats like Watson and Blaxland, and that you're talking about that are putting some of these cabinet ministers under pressure.
Well, I think that's a good thing for one particular reason, and it's because I think at last maybe it's the tipping point where people will stop taking these safe Labor seats for granted. And a lot of people always talk about the federal electorate of Fowler, and if there's one thing that I like to do, Jeremy, it's I like to play poker, particularly at St John's Park Bowling Club, which is like the home of the World Poker Tour Sydney room. And do you know what you do when you play poker? You spend a lot of time sitting down with locals, particularly around that kind of region, because half the field's locals, half the people are coming from other parts of Sydney. And I remember in the lead up to the 2023 election, the 2022 federal election rather, people like looked at me and it was as if they were looking at Anthony Albanese, and they were venting their frustrations at me, and I was still active in the Labor Party at the time. I was helping the Banks campaign almost full time at the time. And the one thing that people kept saying on the ground is they felt like they were being ignored. They didn't say they had a problem with Christina Keneally. And when people think about why Di Lee got elected at the time, it was like, oh, Keneally was parachuted in. Every fucking Labor federal candidate basically has been parachuted in and hasn't lived in the area, because that's what the party had done for so long in those parts of southwest Sydney. And it wasn't...
Was Tony Burke a local?
He is a local, to be fair to him.
Is he? Tony Burke is a local.
To be fair to him, he's a local. So it's just like when it comes to like those kind of issues...
It wasn't there was a parachute...
It was the Fowler Revolution was... the former federal MP, I'd never met him, I didn't know him, but he didn't particularly deliver much for his community. And it kind of hits that tipping point. So that's probably the wake-up call the Federal Labor Party needed. And I feel like out in southwest Sydney, it's better for southwest Sydney that it's not being taken for granted as much. Do I think the Islamic independents that are running there are a catalyst for change? No, I don't, Jeremy.
Yeah, well, I think look, my view is that that if a community, what you should do is organise to get 50.1% of people to vote one way and 49.9%.
It's amazing, isn't it?
And you'd end up like
a marginal seat.
Eden Monaro. Just make it a marginal seat, and then every 3 years someone turns up with $1 billion.
that how it works?
That's how it works. I think I think that there's a group down in Eden Monaro that does that, because every year, every election, it's hotly contested. People turn up with buckets of money, and they promise the world, and good for them. Do you think that Labor can win back Fowler?
I don't think they're going to win back Fowler in terms of winning seats. But if I was going to make a prediction for this federal election, I think at the absolute very worst, we're going to have a minority Labor government. But the way the election's, tracking right now, I think a Labor majority is a very realistic outcome.
You could get 14-1 on a Labor majority on sports
Jeremy,
bet.
don't offer me a good time.
I know, a month ago, 14-1.
What's it paying now?
Oh, I think it's like down at 4s or 5s.
Really?
I know.
Wow.
And Labor's gone from $2.50 down to like $1.32 to form government. So, like a lot, you're not Robinson Crusoe there with so many people then. I think sensing that Albo's a good campaigner. Dutton has, he's just been bashing himself in the face with these, this working from home backflip.
Yeah, I think what that goes down to, like, having lived through it myself, the Labor Party is very good at campaigning on the ground. And I don't think the Liberal Party or the Coalition more broadly has that kind of, like, grassroots level campaign experience. And then what I think the Coalition is doing particularly wrong at this stage is they're relying on a very big kind of like advertising budget, but no one is particularly interested in that message. And then the example that you raised in terms of working from home is it's just like people that work from home have a better quality of life. And a lot of kind of like the discourse about this federal election right now comes down to cost of living, this and cost of living that. And yes, cost of living is a real issue. And then you'll have members of the Labor federal government talk about how they've brought down things like inflation and unemployment more broadly for our country is at some of the lowest levels it's ever seen. That's all well and good. It's factual. It's true. But people on the ground are having a problem with the cost of living. But you got to look at the next level outside of the cost of living to kind of make that kind of assessment on whether it's going to impact on a individual in a marginal seat voting Liberal or Labor. And then it evolves from cost of living to quality of life. And I think what's gone particularly wrong for Peter Dutton and the Coalition in this early stage of the federal election campaign is they're not understanding those quality of life factors that are going to impact people's pencil and where they vote on election day.
That's really fascinating. And what are those quality of life things?
It's a real subjective thing.
Like Albo
in very
announced like
different parts of the country.
$1 billion in mental health funding. When there's a mental health crisis, I thought that was pretty savvy. Announcing that. Childcare, like all the things where you say, okay, we've got problems with quality, with cost of living, and I totally agree. What does cost of living mean? What means my life is harder? Who's going to make it easier to to get by? And and Labor seem to be putting some of those things on the table.
I think the very interesting thing for someone like you, Jeremy, representing the Legalised Cannabis Party, who are candidates in the Senate in New South Wales and in every jurisdiction in Australia as well, is you really kind of like hone in on that quality of life factor where you've got an issue like cannabis, which is illegal in every state and federal jurisdiction. And I'm not completely across the policy space,
except
to be
in
honest.
The ACT.
Except in the ACT.
Except in the ACT.
But you've got an issue like that and a real opportunity for a elected legalised cannabis member like yourself and for the candidates that the party is running in every state and territory is an issue like that is a quality of life factor where you've got a person living, say, in, Campbelltown or Camden that is struggling to pay the bills and whatnot. But when they hear the political discourse from Labor or Liberal in terms of how that issue gets resolved, whether it's a $5 a week tax cut or,
fuel excise
being halved by however much it's going to save, $14, that all gets kind of like lost in thin air. But like a voter like that could hear something that might improve their quality of life, that it might improve their enjoyment and whatnot, which is something simple like legalizing cannabis, that might be a swing factor that plays into how they vote in the Senate. And you just got to get that message out. So,
I think you just did, George, and that's
and that's probably the best way to kind of like
that is exactly
how
that's exactly how I frame it. I say, look, it's a working class drug that is about 10% of Australians use. It costs them a lot of money. They have to criminalise themselves to do it. For that cohort of people, and it's not everyone, but for that cohort of people, or for people that say have a family member who uses cannabis, and it improves their life. I call it, relaxational cannabis use. It's sort of a crossover, a convergence of medicinal and relaxational cannabis. One problem solved for them. Their cannabis use is not going to be criminal anymore. They can grow a couple of plants. They're, may spend less money on it, have more money, except for other things. That is exactly how we frame it up. And it's just improving people's quality of life, not doing harm to other people. And it's not the issue, of course, but it is a significant issue for a significant number of people, I think. And I think you framed it up perfectly.
Yeah, and when it comes down to like elections in general, even more so for state politics that I'm more kind of like familiar with myself, yourself included as a member of the Legislative Council, but there's a general apathy to politics in general. And whichever party it is across the political spectrum, the role of that party in a campaign is to tap into what makes people interested or passionate the most about to vote for them on election day, in the lower or the upper house. And if I was going to kind of like analyse who has been doing that better for this upcoming federal election, it is Labor by the country mile, because I feel like it's not just the grassroots campaigning or the lost wrong messaging from the coalition, which are both major problems for them right now, but they're just not in tune with the issues that matter the most in everyday people's lives. And everyday people in outer Sydney and outer Melbourne are the ones deciding who's going to be the next Prime Minister or not.
It's a really good point. And if the problem is, rising electricity bills, which it is for people struggling to make their ends meet, Dutton's answer is, we're going to build nuclear power stations somewhere that we don't know who's going to build it. We don't know who's going to operate it, and it's off in the never. It's just it's tangential. It doesn't seem like a real world solution right now to what people's self-interest is. I want someone who's going to solve this problem for me, not in 10, 15 years. Now they want some that immediacy.
Well, it's definitely spot on, but like realistically, if you look at it, like there is no permanent solution to something like rising electricity prices. We are not living in some silo here in New South Wales or Australia more broadly. Electricity prices are what they are. Okay, they are what they are. The real opportunity for a party like yours, Jeremy, is saying that message in a way that could resonate with voters, that you need to vote for the legalised cannabis party in every Senate ticket throughout our country. Both major parties are not going to make your electricity prices go down significantly in the long term. But do you know what might improve your quality of life? Legalising cannabis. It's like a real kind of like hard-hitting and direct message. So like,
write this down, Pete.
Yeah, write this down. Sorry, I shouldn't be giving free political advice.
No, it's good. We need some.
Sometimes I am good at my job.
We're taking notes.
No, but like when it comes down to it, it's like with both Liberal and Labor in terms of what they're doing for these problems that realistically don't have a solution. And I'd turn to housing affordability myself. I am the apex example of somebody living through the housing affordability crisis. I'm 35 years old. I don't own a house. I don't have enough of a deposit to buy in an area where I feel like my quality of life would give me balance between, my working life, my personal life, and, entertainment and whatnot. And no matter what happens, that's not going to change. You know, I'm that generation of Australian in my 30s where I've kind of self-realized that I may never be able to buy a house. I will need to wait for my parents to die in 30 years to sell the one property they own to have enough money to buy a house. And then my life's over because I'll be fucking 60.
Yeah, and that's a massive breach of the social contract.
It's just kind of like both major parties have these big kind of like structural issues where there is no solution. They're kind of shuffling the decks on the Titanic, where it's like you need to kind of like win in that short-term electoral cycle, but it's not kind of like a real gigantic solution.
Well, I think that the demographics are like, you know, millennials are now the biggest voting bloc. We've seen like previous elections, everyone just dances to the tune of the boomers. And they're a huge cohort that are sort of shuffling off. They're getting older, you know, less demographically, politically powerful. And so you have seen both parties not wanting to touch that third rail of like negative gearing and these types of things. I mean, the Greens, to their credit, are putting that on. To their credit, are putting that on the table. But I think in like ultimately that the major parties are going to have to look at the like some of these tax and structural reforms so that a whole generation, you know, shut out of housing, because that's part of the sort of social contract, isn't it? If you get an education, you work hard, you can have a home, and that's the security you'll need to set you up and your family up into the future.
Like I have been very lucky since I kind of had the opportunity to, you know, change my life and work in the kind of like TV and the media space since 2021. I've traveled to America for the first time. I think I've made like 8 or 9 trips to the United States in the past 3 years. And then that kind of like fanciful dream, the American dream of kind of you can make it on your own and you can do whatever you want. Like it really is not the case over there. And then my kind of like Brave New World disaster scenario is seeing that kind of happening slowly and slowly and slowly here in Australia, where no matter how well you do in school, no matter what level of education you get, like if you don't hit the jackpot with the bank of mum and dad and hit that lottery, you're not going to get ahead and have the Australian dream, which is to own a home, which isn't necessarily one with a backyard now, because people like me just think, oh, any old apartment will do. But you still kind of like can't get in the market. So it's just like,
I'm going to depress you even more.
Yeah.
And you know that decline that's happened in America, that's happening in Australia. That has been the status quo for most of human history. That if you are born into poverty, you don't get out of it. That if you are born into a certain class, it's very, very hard to get out of it. It's only really post-war, post-World War II,
I was about to say that
we've had this where we've had a political system and an economic system where people through their own volition and hard work and industry can raise themselves up out of like poverty into wealth, and set themselves up and into generational wealth. But we're seeing that retract and that window shut for a whole generation of people, and a lot of anger around it. I see it everywhere. My son, he's like 23 now, and he's looking downrange and thinking about a degree, thinking about his future, and he's going, well, hold on. Why am I going to go and spend $80,000 on a degree when it's just going to put me in a massive amount of debt? I'll be a wage slave and just pay rent until I'm 58.
Correct. Probably longer.
Yeah.
Like I look at my own personal circumstances. I could be renting until retirement age. Then what do? I have to wait for my parents to die to get some money, you know? But like that's just the reality of the situation. So it's like the grand irony, and I'm glad you kind of raised that example, and I'll just give one little quick anecdote. When I was 18, I was working at Kmart Bankstown, particularly in that block of time, and great skills you learn working in customer service at Bankstown Square, Jeremy, when you're 18 years old, in terms of dealing with stress and dealing with people at that Christmas shopping period. Everybody should work in retail at least one point in their life. But when I was working at Kmart Bankstown, I think for that period from like November to February, when you're 18 years old and you've got WOG parents and you don't go out and drink and whatnot, you just work. I was probably doing like 50, 60 hours a week at Kmart Bankstown, and the manager's going, yay, this is fantastic, workers, and I'm going, wow, money, isn't this exciting? And like that was before the kind of like the reform of how mortgages were granted by banks and whatnot, in that late 2000s period. I remember one of my schoolmates, Nick Svetkovsky, listened to his Wog Dad, and he bought a house in Bass Hill for $225,000. A shitty fibro in Bass Hill. And then me and all the like Wog soccer mates at the time, including my twin brother, were like, how fucking stupid is Nick? He's going to be working as a tradie, getting like $12 an hour, whatever we did back then, just to pay off a mortgage. Well, look who's got egg on their fucking face now. Because Nick's fibro that he still owns to this very day out there in Bass Hill, a shitty fibro that is just a development site, a duplex site, because it's 15.25 meters that his dad forced him to buy when he was 18, is worth like $1.3 million.
That is nuts.
In Bass Hill, next to the Hume Highway. So it's like, what I reflect on it like this.
How can it be worth that much? Like the system must be gamed. Like this outrageous increase in property prices, and then there's
like congratulations to someone like Nick.
Yeah,
and good luck to them. Like we don't want a situation where there is this massive correction in the Australian property bubble and the property market, because that's a disaster for everybody involved. But there needs to be kind of like that solution in the middle ground. And then like particularly in Bankstown, which is we're getting the metro now, that the coalition promised, and then Labor's kind of like finally delivering when it comes.
When is it? It's
been delayed to 2026. So
2026. It was supposed to be middle of this year, wasn't it?
It is. But like with that metro, it comes with a change to the Bankstown Town Centre master plan. And then it's...
The TODs.
Yes, of course.
The transport-oriented development. How do you feel about that? Because that's pretty intense.
It's intense, but like as someone that like is looking to buy a property, I am self-aware enough to go that we need more supply. But when I look at the supply that's being delivered, those new kind of apartments that are being built along the metro corridors, are they affordable? Is a brand new 2-bedroom apartment in Bankstown CBD for $700,000 affordable? No, it's not. So when we have a Labor government in particular, I wish Labor was doing more to kind of like change those kind of like local area plans and development proposals where we get affordable housing. And having worked in the housing policy space in a brief period of my life, ordinary people, when they think of affordable housing, they think of the old houses in Waterloo or Villawood and just these rundown, dilapidated homes. But they don't realise affordable housing is you're paying like a non-government community housing provider or a government-run provider just a third of your income. So you're not in housing stress. So like there are kind of like levers government can pull of either persuasion. I don't think the coalition would go down this rabbit hole, but you need that forge and strength of conviction to do more sometimes.
Well, mate, you've got that strength and conviction. It's pouring out of you. You can just feel it. Let's rewind because
let's go.
Let's rewind. We're down the policy rabbit hole. We're taking notes here. There's no doubt about it. You're clearly a deep thinker, and you think about your community. And you were very involved in local Labor politics. It went a little bit pear-shaped. It's very hotly contested Bankstown politics. But there was a key juncture in your life, which was run for council.
Yes,
run for council, and you were. This is a
good story.
And you were doing the numbers, and you worked the system. You were a pretty good chance, but another opportunity arose. And how? Walk us through it, mate, because it's a fascinating story.
So, I'm not particularly religious myself, Jeremy. I was baptized Greek Orthodox, but I encouraged the Macedonian Orthodox Church in Cabramatta to do a community building partnership application because they'd never applied and the church was dilapidated. And they got the funding at the time in 2020, I think it was. And then...
So you're working for Tanya?
No. I stopped working for Ms. Mahalik when she was the member for Bankstown in 2017.
2017.
But I was involved in a lot of community groups in the Macedonian community, in the football space. I was on the board of Bankstown City Lions. for I think 12 years. I was on the board of a local club. I'm not on either of those boards anymore because my life has kind of changed. But I did a lot of things for community groups and the Labor Party. And then I turned 30 years old and I'm a lifelong Survivor fan. And I see the ad during season 5, I think, as All Stars was finishing. Apply now if you're going to be the next Survivor contestant. And I was like, fuck yeah. I'm going to give this a go. Because like that's the reaction that I had. So I
had they advertised it as brains versus brawn?
No,
it was just like,
you don't find that out. It's just apply. So, you know, I tried to do a video and then it sucked. And then I'm like, this is not for me. And then I remember I was at some tequila bar with my straight football mates, Mike and Stevie, and we're having these $1 million margaritas. I talk about this in my book, How to Win Friends and Manipulate People. It was near Circular Quay there. And I ordered a round of $200 $1 million margaritas and we had it. And then I was like, I'm going to apply for Survivor. And my German mate, Mike, he's like, yeah, you can fucking do it. You can do it. And I'm like, all right, Mike's encouraged me. Next day, I go to my physio. I'm sitting in my old 1990 Kia Rio at the time, the beat up doors, and I'm holding my phone like this, and I'm going, hi, my name's George. I'm 30 years old, and I'm the president of the Labor Party in Bankstown. I think that's kind of like a direct impersonation of myself. And what I did in my audition video is what you need to do in audition videos, but I didn't realize I was doing it at the time. So I established myself as a character, and what the interesting character points about me were that I'm a political operative, the word that I used at the time because it was particularly factual. Was not a political staffer at the time, but I was still, you know, involved in Labor branches at the time. I am from Bankstown and everything that meant. And then I'm a straight shooter and I call a spade a spade. And then lo and behold, you know, I go down that audition process. What I don't realize in 2020 is I've done everything.
What is the audition process? Like, do they really put, like, there must be thousands that apply.
Yeah, it would be.
But like, do they make you do like a physical and a psych evaluation?
You do that at the end. Back in the day, there used to be a group audition. So I went through 2 group auditions and then you get in a room and then I'm kind of telling myself, and I know this is all my kind of like, you know, when you're a political staff and you're good at your job and you've got a hardworking member that you work for, you do a lot. And that includes like early morning media and whatnot and coming up with 10 variations of lines on different issues and making sure that like an irrelevant political issue in the grand scheme of things
you do a lot of planning.
What makes the 7, 9, 10 ABC, SBS or whatever news.
Yeah, you do a lot of planning.
What I think helped me immensely at the time is I spoke in sound bites. And I was not afraid to kind of take risks and do action. So I rock up to this group audition at the Adina at Surrey Hills, and I'm telling myself this. I'm like, there's 2 other fucking Georges in this room, and I've got to be the best George possible. So, like, I'm standing in this horseshoe with probably like 30 people, Jeremy, and then I'm kind of like in the middle, and I see a guy in a suit, and he's like, hi, I'm whatever, and I'm a lawyer from Parramatta. And I went, good. I need to fuck that guy's life over, you know? Like, this is the way that I'm thinking. Like,
you were thinking, you didn't say it out loud.
No, this is what I'm thinking. Oh, no, I did it, ironically, in my group audition. And then it goes round, and then there was a guy like 4 on my left, also a man in a suit, and he's like, oh, hi, my name's Ahmed, and I'm a lawyer from Greenacre. And then I'm just like, shit, another lawyer from Bankstown. So I've got to do better than this guy. So it's coming around next to me. I'm a little bit nervous. I know this might be strange to say, but I used to be camera shy back in the day. I did these few random news things with Bankstown City Lions Football Club when we signed Mary Fowler when she was 15. And then I was like, ooh, I'd shake in front of a camera. So I'm like, don't fuck it up. Don't fuck it up. There's this guy next to me. He's like, he was talking about how he was a victim of sexual assault when he was a child. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm going after the fucking sexual assault victim. This is a fucking disaster. And then he's like, and then I became a black belt. And then the EP who's sitting in the middle, she's like, next. And then I'm just like, wow, whatever your name was, I don't remember. That was a really sad story. But I don't have a sad story. I'm just the president of the Labor Party in Bankstown. And then I just went on this tirade about Bankstown, and then I turned to this lady on the end because I'm like, I need to be engaging and talk to people. And I'm like, why are you laughing? And she was wearing like this carnival outfit. And she's like, oh, I think it's funny. And I was like, I'm not fucking joking, bitch. I was like, I was like,
that's an attitude.
I'm like, if I don't get on this show and you live in Canterbury Bankstown, particularly in Bankstown Ward, you need to vote for me on election day. And everybody's laughing. And then anyway, you did this group task, and I formed a little alliance, and I did lots of like little things. And then we had the fake tribal council, and then like I was one of the target of the votes, and then I got in this huge kind of like arguments with people. I turned it around. It was a split vote. We went up and vote, and then the audition ended. And I was like, wow, I hope I did good.
You either did really well or really bad.
I just blew it out of the water. I was probably like the first person they chose. But like, yeah. And then, the COVID pandemic.
But you laid it on the line. You really went hard.
Yeah, but then the COVID pandemic happened.
So this is 2020.
This is 2020. Yeah, so everything in life got like delayed for a year, including the Bankstown Ward pre-selection that I was going to contest if I didn't get on Survivor. And then the ball kind of just picked up in January. Are you still interested? I'm like, oh, how fucking quick do I respond to this email? And I'm just like, yes.
In 42 seconds.
Yeah, like basically. And then that's when you do the kind of like internal testing. But I hadn't realized only the real kind of like selected candidates do that. So physical, medical, psych, evaluations, more kind of like
what do they do? Like a Rorschach test, or what do they do?
You do like swim tests. Can you like do push-ups, sit-ups? It's very basic. Anyone can pass it, Although I am a catastrophic swimmer, so I had to doggy paddle my 200 meters. There's no time limit. It's just can you swim?
Can you
200
get there?
meters. It's like, yes, just. And then I got the yes call. And, when I got the yes call, I was like, I'd just done some, I think I was at my brother's house, my twin brother. He's had a gender reveal for the pregnant sister-in-law. I was exhausted, and my phone was charging in the back room, and my Apple Watch at the time was just vibrating a no number. And I'm like, oh, it could be the call. And I'm like, oh, why would it be the call? It's just a Chinese telemarketer. That's what I was telling myself. Who else calls on a no number at 7:00 on a Sunday night? Then I sprinted to the back just in case, and I'm like, hello. And then because I'd done my research, I was just waiting for a Keely Sontag to call me. And then she's like, hi, George. My name's Keely Sontag. I'm the executive producer of Australian Survivor. And I'm like, good, thanks. And then she gave me the yes. And I remember how excited I was at the time. And then I was like, oh, God, now I've just got to not tell anyone that I'm going. And then
golden
just go.
ticket.
Yeah.
And did you have to keep it on the lowdown?
Well, I did. When
you do, but do they tell you
and sign an NDA? It's just I'm not going to broadcast it because I'm not going to go on. Like, they can...
But you kept it on the real lowdown because you had...
Oh, I did
you were lining up for Bankstown Council.
Well, I knew that... So I kind of had
sliding doors
I had a fallback up my sleeve. So I knew the pre-selection was going to happen about halfway through the game. So I kind of told myself, I have this kind of like 3-odd week. I didn't realize it would have been 4 at the time. But I had this kind of like period where if I didn't make jury, it would be fine. I would just come back after not having a phone for 2 or 3 weeks and pick up where I left off.
You had the backup.
But when I made jury, I knew that wasn't going to happen. So
and so into Survivor you go. And because of COVID, it's up in Cloncurry.
Magnificent part of our country.
Oh, no, beautiful part of our country, but not as exotic as some art. The second one you're in Samoa, of course. But Cloncurry, and like you're a duck to water. You were born for it.
Yeah, well, I mean, Survivor is about 3 things, essentially, when you boil it down. The first one, it is social politics on a stick and deep fried. It is a case of, can you manage the political relationship along with the threat of having to vote someone out, you might be voted out, and the constant pressure that generates. I was very adept at that. That was the strong point for me. The second part of Survivor...
And that was local politics, because you've been involved in politics.
Course,
you're on the board of a soccer club. I mean, those things are like can be full on.
It's just like, do you know what's more political than Bankstown Labor Party politics?
Nothing.
Bankstown City Football Club Macedonian internal politics. It's a lot worse.
And your family politics, I bet.
So it's just like, in terms of the political side of the game, like that was the easy part of the game. I'd never gone camping before day one in Cloncurry. I had never gone camping. And then
Never,
because I
at
was
all.
so, Jeremy,
You'd never been.
I was so excited to be going on Survivor, I never thought to fucking Google what is the temperature in Cloncurry in May and June.
Yeah.
So I had this delusional thought that I was going to the outback and it's always hot, including at night. So when my day one look is I remember the EP, like I'm kind of like diverging back here, but on the phone call, she's like, and you're going to get all these wardrobe instructions. You got to pick your day one look and then you get extra items like later in the game. I'm like, okay, good. And she's like, and can you wear what you wore in the group audition? And I'm like, oh, you mean my Bankstown look? And she's like, yeah, the white one. So that was the look I went in with because the audition instructions were wear something that represents you. And for me, it was, what am I going to wear at Bankstown Sports Club on a Saturday night if I'm not going out to the city and I want to leave the house? A white T-shirt, a white shorts, and white loafer shoes. White on white on white. With a white villain hat I bought from Politics at Bankstown. So it's just like, I go out to Cloncurry where it gets to fucking freezing at night. It gets to like 0 and 3 and 4 in a T-shirt and shorts. And then you've got that kind of like physical element of the game that sometimes doesn't translate to TV, where it is just so hard. And then the conditions in the outback were so horrifically hard, terrible. Yeah, then you've got the mental side of the game where it just grinds you down. So when I've played Survivor, I thoroughly enjoy it. So I don't kind of think about the physical side. The mental side, my resilience levels are through the roof. And the political side, it's like water off a duck's back.
But you see the people that like win Survivor, and they look like they're coming out of a prisoner of war camp.
Well, I look like that, Jeremy. But it's just like
they got sunken eyes, and they've lost 20 kilos.
Yeah.
Their hair's gone white. That's
why I got white in my beard now. I've played Survivor too many times.
It's like I'm at home watching, and I'm freaking out. Like doing those. The puzzles, when people are trying to do a puzzle under pressure for immunity, you're screaming. It must give you a panic attack.
Well, I never get panic attacks like in terms of things like that. What I always focused on out there was on, as strange as this might sound to you, I always focused on the numbers, Jeremy, because winning immunity or finding an idol or an advantage in Survivor is great. Okay, it's fantastic.
But you can't rely on it.
You can't rely on it. Do you know what you can rely on? The fucking numbers.
Yeah.
So it's just like any time I went, and then I learned a lesson the first time in terms of the optics of trying in challenges. So because I was so physically depleted the first time, I went 26 days without a reward. And it was all at the end of the game. So I'm eating a fistful of rice and lentils a day, whilst everyone else is winning reward challenges.
And it's legitimately that. They don't give you a Snickers bar.
They definitely don't. So it's just like I'm withering away and exhausted, and I'm telling myself 155% energy into my Voxy, my confessionals. I'm like, you're doing the TV show, full energy on the confessionals and full energy in camp. So like I compartmentalized it incorrectly. So there were 2 challenges. I was like, no point me bothering here. I know I'm not going to win. So I had an optics issue with a bit of jury anyway, which didn't help me. But the second and the third time that I've played, I just tell myself 100% nonstop because it's going to end eventually, and then it is what it is. So it's just focus on the numbers. Don't have a image issue in terms of he doesn't care about challenges and whatnot. And then the physical and the mental side of the game, keep excelling and don't let it grind you down when it's torrential rain in Samoa.
And were you just doing 3-dimensional chess the whole time?
Yeah.
Lying there at night going, look, I've got to, I've screwed that person over. How do I get back with them? Or I'll screw them over now and then I'll get back later on, because you have lined up for the villains.
My second time.
Yeah, the second time. Yeah. And I love the villains.
Yeah.
In Survivor, I love the people that...
The fun thing about me, Jeremy, is I'm like a Disney villain. I'm the villain that you love.
Yeah. You own it.
It's just like... There's a degree of being a villain. So, you're
explicitly playing the game. People can tell that about you.
I don't necessarily think it's that. So, I think there was... I could very well have been on the Heroes tribe in the Heroes v Villains season, because I saved people in the outback. I always protected my people, my alliance. That's like the Bankstown coming through with me. But the other side of it, that kind of like more kind of like ruthless streak, is kind of like what you learn in Labor Party branches. If the people you're trying to offer a deal with are not interested in their deal, they're trying to roll you.
Yeah.
And the only way you respond to war is with war.
Yeah.
You respond to peace with peace and war with war. I was that kind of villain. I just also made very entertaining TV, which is why the New York Times called me the most telegenic antagonist in TV history.
I know, you're amazing. and people resonated. Like I've watched thousands of hours of Survivor.
I had no idea, Jeremy.
Yeah,
like,
and
what a
everyone
revelation.
No, I was really proud. I was going, this guy's so and you just miss out. Like the first time.
Well, I was robbed the first time, but honestly, I describe my final tribal council was like me being a Labor candidate running in the state electorate of Vaucluse. I had zero chance of winning.
Yep.
You know, zero chance. There was a narrow path of a 5-4 win, but I was expecting a 7-2 loss, and that's exactly what I got.
You picked it.
I was shat on intensely by Emmett on that jury, a very bitter juror. And just the matrix of that jury of people that had never watched a Survivor episode before and were being hated on by Emmett, I knew I wasn't going to win. So it's just like, that was the first time. Hayley is Australia's best ever winner. She is the most skillful, complex, incredible Survivor player I've ever played with. So it's not like I lost to a bad person. It's just that I did more than Hayley, and I was more deserving of her very deserving win the first time. The second time was very different for me. The second time, I think after that episode 7 Tribal Council, and then when I knew I just created the best moment in Australian Survivor TV history, I didn't realise it would make Australian Survivor go so global around the world that people call it the best in the franchise now, like the New York Times did. And then when I won the $60,000 set for life, don't gamble everyone, prize money, I'll just put that little asterisk there. After that, I was like, I'm fucking free rolling here once I make the jury. So I'm like, I am free rolling. All I need to do is march to the end and keep being entertaining. And that's what I did.
But you nearly
and
like
the only reason why I don't win the crown, and then I'm aware of this kind of like piece of the puzzle right at the very end. So I knew I'd beat Jerry in an endurance challenge. What I didn't realize at the time is when my injury happened with my head, my shoulder was torn at the whole time I was playing the game.
That's when you went over the barrel and smashed your face. Yeah.
Very unfortunate.
Yeah, like it was unfortunate, but like what I did.
Still lived with the permanent damage to my body.
I looked back at it and went like, but the people can like really get hurt or die on this thing.
Jackie and I got very hurt. She suffered.
It was a full scorpion over the top into the mud.
Yeah, let's not talk about that. But
sorry.
She got more hurt than me.
It's traumatic. I'm sorry.
I had muscle damage which I didn't know.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, when
you committed,
when I was being pumped with fentanyl at the Arpia hospital, all I kept saying was, if my neck's not broken, I'm going back in. I don't know if that was the drive or the fentanyl. So when the Samoan health minister organises my one MRI at the machine at the hospital at 4 a.m, and I've got like 6 hours to go before their medical rule expires, and then this doctor carts me in, and I'm just still pumped on fentanyl going, if my neck's not broken, I'm going back in. And he's like, all right, you'll be fine. So, like, the MRI happens on a Sunday in Samoa as well, when nothing happens on a Sunday in that country. And then the results, I got told, got sent to the Gold Coast. They're like, very significant swelling, not broken. And then I remember I was in the neck brace for like 21 hours, just horizontal. Like, try peeing lying down in a neck brace horizontal, Jeremy. Very difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
So they were like, it's not broken, you just have significant swelling. And I was like, get me the fuck back in. So it's just like, I'm leaning vertical like this just to get like the blood flow. It's like 8:30.
Where does that that competitive edge come from?
Well,
where
it's just like, you know, how many times are you going to get to play Survivor? You need that kind of like drive and ambition to like keep going and win. So, you know, that's when I go to pee, standing up. I see the giant hole on my face, and then I'm just laughing, probably because it's the fentanyl and the concussion. So then I get driven back out. I get discharged from the hospital, and then I'm sitting down, and then I have this very serious chat with the psychologist and the executive producer. And he's going to me, he's like, you're going to have trauma when you see a challenge. I go, I'm going to have no fucking trauma. I'm like, get me back in. I've been cleared. And then he's trying to talk to me, and then the EP's like, all right, go. The psychologist goes. And he looks at me like this. He's like, we're not forcing you to go back in. I'm like, I'm demanding to go back in. He's like, it's your decision. I'm like, I'm going back in. He's like, you're going to have one more chat with the psych. And I'm just like, just get him the fuck out of here. I need to walk down that path. And then that's what I did. 20 minutes later, I'm walking down the path, boom, game back on, So it's just like, you need some kind of like mental fortitude and resilience, not just in Survivor, but in life. Because if you don't kind of like push yourself, if you don't back yourself to do things and to succeed, then, like, why would other people be inspired to do the same with you?
What a great message. And so you make it to the jury in that one?
I was the final juror. So like in that scenario, in my second game, I knew I was a 75% chance of winning the title of sole survivor in Heroes v Villains, because if I won the final challenge, if Matt won the final challenge, if Jerry won the final challenge, I get to the final three to pitch, I win. I knew the equation was if Liz wins, I'm dead. And it wasn't a surprise to me. And like the story that I tell people is Cara, my surprise loved one, my best friend from the Outback and in life still, the Duchess of Double Bay. She comes, and then when I come off because my torn shoulder couldn't take anymore, and I was only like 14 minutes off the actual win, she's like, who do you want to win? And I'm like, oh, I'm closer to Liz than Matt. And she's like, so you want Liz to win? And I'm like, no, if she wins, I'm fucked. It's just, yeah. But it's like, I didn't care. I came with nothing to lose. I leave knowing I've made the best episode in Survivor history worldwide, $60,000. And then it's just like, I've enhanced my legacy and my reputation even more. It's just like,
and here you are.
If I go now, I go to the jury, I start, having my feast and a few margaritas, and I get ready for my jury spiel the next day.
What is that like when you step off and you like have that shower, that feast, and you've got regular food?
You made a few assumptions there that I shower when I finish playing Survivor, Jeremy. So the first time in the Outback, I had no idea how much dirt we were caked in, like that fine dust of like Cloncaring, Mount Isa region. It is like a foundation that you don't even realize is there. So that finish at like 5 a.m., the final tribe, will get driven to Mount Isa from where we were near Cloncaring. And then all I wanted to do was watch the 2021 Eurovision Song Contest. I was also working at the State Insurance Regulatory Authority at the time when I was a public servant. And I had done all the prep for the executive that needed to appear at a Law and Justice CTP inquiry that happens all the time. And I remember reading that final report going, oh, wow, it went really well. That's interesting.
You dork.
Yeah, I know. No, so I read all of that, and then I watched Eurovision, and then it was something like 9:30 a.m., still hadn't showered, and all I was thinking about was KFC after not winning it at the sponsored challenge, my first season. So we got in a taxi, me, my mum, and my sister. We went to Mount Isa KFC, and I wasn't remembering the words from the doctor going, don't eat too much food too quickly. So I ordered like this giant family feast, ate it in the caravan park, and then I felt the significant reef syndrome I did for the next like 8 hours of severe stomach pain. So I think I showered when we got to Brisbane the next night, and the dirt was coming off me for probably 2 weeks. In Samoa, I filmed my jury villa scene the next day, that little bit, and then I remember being in the jacuzzi, just doing like a fake shower, and then like the producer Jazz at the time, she's like, okay, we're all done, you can go have a real shower now. I'm like, no, I'll be right, that's my shower.
Classic.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, well, you don't need a shower, what for?
Well, look, you made a gigantic impression on Australia, on the world. Like, a massive, as you say, noted all around the world. One of the most favourite Survivor contestants, and you're doing it all again.
I am.
You must be mad.
It's very exciting.
And so tell us about this one. What can you tell us about this one?
I can tell you what already is public knowledge, that Channel 10 commissioned Australian Survivor v. the World, and I'm one of 3 Australians that were announced in the media release. So it's myself, Kirby, and Shawnee, and in the World Tribe, they announced 3 American Survivor legends, Parvati, Tony, and Sari.
Amazing.
That, I think a premiere date will be announced by Network 10 very, very soon, but I can't wait to go back to Samoa a 3rd time.
It's in Samoa again.
It is back in Samoa.
Oh, beautiful. Not to Cloncurry.
No,
Not to Dubbo.
no. Well, Dubbo, do you know what? Why doesn't the New South Wales government commission more kind of like either Australian or international productions in Australia? Because when I think back to that Cloncurry season, that was sponsored by Screen Queensland. They committed $17 million.
Is that right?
It is absolutely right.
How much they made bank on that?
Oh, they would have done, like, the whole town of Cloncurry. Like, I still haven't gone back to the curry. Apparently, I'm like a local legend up there, according to what some of my friends that worked on the production have told me. But that was just like the dollar that the Queensland government invested, which was $17 million for 2 seasons. They did one at Cloncurry, one at Charters Towers, but it was like, I remember reading it was like a 7-fold dollar-to-dollar investment return, and it was just huge.
It's huge.
If you just think about it, it's hundreds of staff that are all living there, eating there, spending money there, whether it was in the curry or in the Isa, and it was just this huge like injection of
the biggest
money.
thing that's probably ever happened or happened for a long time.
Yeah.
And if you think about how in the 80s there was a lot of federal money for Screen Australia, these things, and we had things like Mad Max produced out in Broken Hill.
Absolutely.
Fantastic settings, and that put Australia on the map.
Well, we could have filmed My Desert Season in Broken Hill. That would have been exciting. Have you been to Broken Hill, Jeremy?
I love Broken Hill.
I went there. You know, when our internal border opened during COVID, and after not leaving Bankstown once, because I followed every rule, when they announced the borders were gone, but we couldn't leave New South Wales.
You went as far as you possibly could.
I got in that old Kia Rio, then I drove to fucking Broken Hill. I was like, I'm going to visit the sister city of Bankstown. I'm going to Broken Hill. And then what happened to me? So I just went on my random route. So I stopped overnight in Orange. And then I went from Orange to Condobolin, because when I looked it up... when I went to Condo, when I looked it up on Google, I was like, oh, there's this Condo to Cobar road. It's a road. So it's like 4 o'clock. I'm at the Condobolin Bakery on the main strip there. They're like, you from Sydney? I'm like, yeah, how could you tell? And she's like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, oh, I'm about to drive to Cobar. She's like... All dirt? Yes. This is what she goes to me. I had no idea. She's like, oh... hope you got a good 4-wheel drive. And I'm like, I'm in that beat up Kia Rio outside right there. And she's like, oh, good luck, mate. And I'm like, oh, she'll be right. So I'm just driving on this road at like 20. And I'm like, just don't drive in the middle of the night, even on the like main road. Yeah. I am just like going like 20 and going boom, 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 like up and down. I make it to Cobar. What I don't realize is my radiator is leaking significantly. So when I drive from that road from Cobar to Broken Hill, and you've only got Wilcannia about halfway between, about halfway to Wilcannia, my smoke's coming up and it's beat up Rio, and I'm just like, fuck, I have no idea how to fix a car. So I just lift the lid. What do you call the thing? The bonnet. The bonnet, yeah. I lift the lid. So I've lifted the lid and smoke's coming out, and then luckily this Victorian... Probably steam. Grey, yeah, it was that, yeah. And then these Victorian grey nomads pulled over, and they're like, oh, just pour water over it. So I empty my water, and he's like, oh, your radiator's got nothing in it, because all the fluid was leaking from that bloody road to Condo, from Cobar. And then I filled it up with water. I drove all the way back to Cobar. You went back? Back with the lid of the radiator off. I made it back because I drove back at like no more than like 50 or 40 on that road. I pull into... Most people drive on that at about 140. Yeah, about 140. It's amazing. It's a real eye-opener. If you ever want to test a car, go there. But like... And then I pull into this mechanic. He's like, oh, you're lucky you made it here. Where'd you come from? I was like, oh, I was about 210 kilometers out of town. He's like, your radiator should have exploded. And then paid him like $100. He patched up and it made it to Broken Hill. Broken Hill. Did you stay at the pub? What's it called there?
where they filmed Priscilla.
I should know this.
What's it called? It's not the Imperial.
No, that's the one at Urco.
That's the one at Urco. It's freaky.
I did go there.
Did
but
you
didn't
go there?
stay
I stayed
yeah.
there, and I stayed in there, like their luxury suite, and it's got all mirrors on the ceiling, and all these weird like stuffed animals, like stuffed wedge-tailed eagles, but look all mangy. All the feathers have come off, and and shag pile carpet. And
do you know what?
It's a freaky place, Broken Hill.
When I went there, they were still, like, I think quite strict with social distancing, because it was what would have been like 21 when the first lockdown ended and that border opened. But so when I went there, it was like everyone's just sitting alone at tables. It wasn't like live entertainment and whatnot. But I need to get back to Broken Hill. Maybe I'll go in September if they have
It's
that
a
Broken Hill
fantastic
festival
place,
again.
and there's some real oddities out there, and some like it's a really big arts community.
It is, yeah.
There's a big gay community out there.
I realised when I opened Grindr in Broken Hill, Jerry.
It lit up.
I was like, wow, fresh meat. This is exciting. And they're not shirtless torsos like they are in Bankstown.
No, there's all types out there. Some hairy miners, as in digging the hole.
Thank you for that clarification. I was like, oh, this is gone down a route I wasn't expecting.
Gone pear shape. So look, you're very courageous. You get around, and since the Survivor phenomenon, you've become an author. And I haven't availed myself of your book, How to Win Friends and Manipulate.
Very original.
It's fantastic. I think it's the most. Well, it's in the. I think How to Win Friends and Influence People is top 10 seller worldwide ever. It's like the Bible, the Quran, Lord of the Rings, and that
book.
And then you've done this. So tell us about why you became an author and how you manipulate people. Why should we be manipulating people? I mean, we all do. Like, the reality is, like, the perception is if you're manipulating people, you're a psychopath. But in actual fact, we have to, like, it's part of social interaction, isn't it?
My book is an entertainment book. It is various stories where I retell anecdotes from my life or from Survivor, but at the end of every story is a lesson. So the moral of the story of my book, How to Win Friends and Manipulate People, is there's a difference between good manipulation and bad manipulation. So when it comes to striking a deal with people, you need to, and this is the secret to my Survivor game as well, you need to identify people's intents, their priorities, and their motivations. If you can work out those three critical elements, you are manipulating that person to agree to a deal that benefits yourself and them. It's kind of like very simple game theory without me being kind of like an academic or whatnot about it. But
it's a win-win.
It's a win-win situation, and that is the best thing in life. That is the best thing in politics for local communities or for internal machinations, and it's the best thing for the game of Survivor, because people always wonder, why didn't they vote George off? It's because George came up with a plan that worked for George and worked for them, and then I made it like episode after episode going through and through and through again and again and again, because it worked for all parties, and the rabbit out of a hat plan kind of like worked. When people think of manipulation, they always think of bad manipulation. There are those kind of like negative influences out there, and that's how I tend to frame them. They may succeed in the short term, but they won't succeed in the medium and the long term.
Now, that's the key point too, because if you, let's put it in place, but if you fuck someone over, like, and you tell them something and then it doesn't pan out like that.
It's over.
It's
You've
over.
burnt a bridge,
You've
there's
burned
bad
a bridge,
blood,
and
you've got to
your reputation's
Exactly.
trashed. People don't trust you. You know, like, and so that's a key part of it, isn't it?
So it absolutely is. So I try to make that distinction by recounting fantastic stories from either Survivor. If you're a Survivor fan, if you're a George fan, you'd love my book, and you can get it off from your local bookstore. That's probably sold out, because my publisher said there's only about 400 copies left in the first print run of 5,000, which I think is pretty good. But you can get it off Amazon or online, and from my Instagram at King George of Bankstown. Yeah.
Yeah. Do yourself a favour.
Yeah, do it. Yeah.
And so you've become an author, and you're a celebrity. You're a massive TV celebrity.
Yeah.
You're huge on Insta. You're turning up at the opening of envelopes. You're everywhere. You're an ambassador for all kinds of different causes. and doing a lot of shout outs on social media. People love you. They love to hear your voice and hear you.
I'm the top Australian on Cameo, Jeremy.
Yeah.
So Cameo is a online platform where you send a personalized video message to someone for a birthday, an anniversary, a pep talk, or whatnot. So did I think when I was out there in the outback playing for the first time that I would be the top Australian on Cameo? No, I didn't. But when I reflect on what made mainstream Australia through that Channel 10 audience, because that's where I've done all of my TV work, very gratefully to the fantastic people at 10. What made me connect with the audience was the fact that when I went on my first TV show, I did it because I was passionate about Survivor, and I was at a point in my life where I wanted to start doing things that prioritized me, that didn't prioritize the football club, the club that I was on the board with, Labor Party stuff internally. I wanted to do stuff for me. So when I went out there in the outback, I was a free spirit being George from Bankstown that transformed and evolved into King George when I was out there, when Laura called me, oh, he was walking around like the king. And I'm like, yep, that's my new character point. Thank you. Fantastic. I welcome this development. So when I went out there, I made good TV because I wasn't going on a TV show trying to become a influencer, the most detested word that I have in the industry.
Authentic.
I was authentic, and then
that's the secret sauce,
I lived through the emotion. I am a good communicator and whatnot, and people were emotionally invested in me because they loved me or they'd hated me. The one thing that I was wrong about is I thought my polling numbers would split 50-50. I was very wrong about that. My polling numbers after my first season were about 75% extreme love and 25% extreme hate. Fantastic, because you never forget me.
Yep.
And then after my second season of Survivor, they probably moved to about even more extreme love on the 85% stance, and then even more extreme vehement hate. But like when you are a person that people kind of like know through the TV screen, there's that kind of like other kind of facet in your life that I think I was prepared for because I'd worked in politics for so long, and then you kind of learn like.
Because you're like recognised, Bankstown loves you.
I get stopped every single day.
You get stopped everywhere.
So, and then it's just that old kind of like political advice when I was, a 23-year-old political staffer learning how it all kind of worked. And I remember my boss Tanya Mihaly saying to me, she's like, when I'm walking around at Bass Hill Woolies trying to get food for my kids at 9 o'clock at night after Parliament or after work or the countless number of meetings and whatnot, I'm still an MP then.
Yeah.
So when,
it's a 24/7 job.
It's a 24/7 job. So like I always had that attitude being a public figure as a TV character. So whether it's, walking around the streets of Bankstown, when I'm in the city, when I'm at the pub with my mates, at Surrey Hills and it's 2 a.m. and a fan walks up to me, oh, King George, can I have a photo? I'm like, sure, darling. Why not? I am only of value and relevance, whilst those fans that I'm so eternally grateful for their emotional investment and financial investment in terms of other things has come toward my way. I always have to deliver my fans a positive customer experience because they may only get one interaction with me in real life, and it needs to be a good one. So,
and you have one bad one. You tell someone to piss off, and I'm a big deal.
It's not that. But do you know what, Jeremy? I would never say the words "I'm a big deal" because I'm not a big deal. I'm a person that has lived through a lot in the 35 years of my life, and I'm very lucky and fortunate that my kind of like life experience made me a very interesting TV character that people are still interested in.
But you've worked hard too, and people recognise that too.
I work hard to kind of like maintain and do that, but it's just like that if I provide people a negative customer experience, that's real public sector talk coming
customer
out of
experience.
Negative customer experience. If I provide, I worked as a public servant for 4 years in between my political staffing and going on TV, but if I provide people a negative customer experience, it's over.
Yeah,
it's game over. And then
a couple of shit reviews, and that's it.
And then like you try and become immune to like criticism, negativity, and whatnot. So because I was so polarizing on the two extremes, either extreme love or extreme hate. I have had the most kind of like vociferously defamatory and negative shit made up about me that is just haters sitting down on a keyboard, and it's all like a pack of lies.
Yeah.
And you just tell yourself, you don't engage, you don't interact, you don't acknowledge, you just move on. Because those extreme 15% of haters, first of all, are going to be watching the TV show that I'm going to be going on.
Yeah.
Because they're so emotionally invested in the negative way, they will just watch to see me struggle, lose,
They
or fail.
love to hate.
And then the ratings go up and the network loves that and the advertisers love that. So that's a win. But on the more kind of like micro and personal level, are they booking me on Cameo? No. Are they buying my book? No. Are they booking me to MC a wedding or to attend a birthday party, all these other random things I do for fan engagement sometimes?
You do a bit of wedding singing? Do you do a bit of wedding singing? Tell me you're a singer as well.
I don't do singing. I do love the Eurovision Song Contest, but I'd never be a performer at one. I wouldn't mind hosting it, but I missed that boat this year. But it's just like I cannot convert those negative fans into a customer. So you kind of have to build internal resilience as a person of public interest that has just been on multiple reality and other TV shows, very gratefully on 10. Like, you just park them in a box and you forget about it. And all my energy goes into my fans, because those fans I can commercialize and convert, and I don't want to, it's not how I think as well. I also get happy when they're happy and ask me questions and whatnot. But like I decided 3 years ago, my full-time job is being a TV personality, and I generate income from TV appearance fees, speaking gigs, Cameo, book fees, and other ad hoc appearances and whatnot. And that brings me joy and fun.
And you're doing this just to be clear, you're doing this on a voluntary basis?
On a voluntary basis?
Yeah, this one.
Oh, this one?
Yeah.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Oh, jeez.
So you're going to give me an invoice.
Excuse me. Did you have a budget for an appearance fee?
Oops, hold on.
Yeah. So
well, that's magnificent. What's next? I mean, you've got Survivor. So how long does it take to film? Because it runs over how many weeks? Does it?
Yeah, it takes quite a while.
Does it? It's months out. 6 months? Is it? How long is it?
It's not necessarily just how long you're on set, Jeremy. It's
the
preparation
promo
you need. It's the preparation you need to do beforehand. So, like when you're kind of filming Survivor, like you kind of like I like to get mentally ready. Mm-hmm. Like I like to conjure up the storylines that I'm going to implement out there on set on the island.
Wow.
And then I try to think of scenarios, and I try to I like manifest isn't the right word. I maneuver for that scenario to happen.
Yep.
And
victory loves preparation.
Well, glory or death. But like seriously, like that's the attitude that I have when I go out there. Like I'm going to do something interesting, exciting, and fun, because what I dislike in Survivor players, Jeremy, is what I dislike in politicians. The ones that get ahead by doing nothing. And before King George...
Not taking a risk.
Correct. But before King George on Australian Survivor, we had a lot of winners that won the crown of sole survivor by doing as little as possible, by playing under the radar, by not taking risks, by being completely inoffensive, but also not taking positive action. And that's what I dislike in politicians as well. The ones that sit there in their offices, whether it's in their electorate offices or in whichever parliament they're sitting in, that don't take risks, that don't take any action to support and benefit the community that they're in, but they get ahead because they win, and they keep winning on election day until the shit hits the fan and they win no more. Yep. So I brought a cultural shift to Australian Survivor because I wanted to. And when I think back, TV is a very time-limited space, Jeremy. I'm conscious of that. Fortunately for me, there's a little bit more juice left to squeeze in the berry.
Well, I think there's a lot more juice in you, mate. No doubt about it.
When it comes to TV, I tell myself I'm going there to make a goddamn fucking good TV show. And every time I'm on a TV show, the ratings are huge. I'm not the only reason why for it, but that's why I keep getting booked and busy. So, like, it takes preparation beforehand to get there. But I'm very excited to watch Australia v. the World. I'm pumped for it, Jeremy. It's going to be such a good season. I obviously can't talk too much about it. I'll let Ten do the announcements and whatnot, but it's going to be a super fan's dream.
And now, like, you're an incredibly articulate, thoughtful guy. Have you put politics in the never again basket, or is it something that you like? I mean, I reckon if you ran for Bankstown mayor, do they directly elect the mayor, or
no, it's chosen by the councillors. So
politics, because you're working part time, you're doing a little bit of work still in politics around the place. Is it something that you've put in the past category, or is it something that you would think about again?
I think it's not right now, Jeremy. So the thing with politics is I have thoroughly enjoyed my life since these TV and other kind of commercial media opportunities have presented themselves to me. I've travelled to countries I never thought I'd visit. I've been to a World Cup. I've played poker, which is my huge passion and hobby at the local level, to the extent where you could call myself a semi-professional poker player as well, in terms of like things that I do for fun and to generate income. So it's just like I've travelled, played poker, enjoyed my life, and I've had a really, really good run that would end the moment I become a candidate. So I know I spoke a little bit about it before on this podcast, where I went down a rabbit hole where I would start prioritizing myself in 2021, and I did that by playing Survivor for the first time. I'm still doing that in terms of political aspiration or whatnot, just for a little bit longer.
Yeah. Well, look, George, more strength to your arm, brother. You're an incredibly interesting, energetic, articulate human being, and you really do resonate with the community, and your positivity is marvelous.
Yeah.
And it's written all over you. I mean, you've got your fantastic ink. Come on, show us. Can we have a reveal? Look
Jeremy,
at this.
Usually I charge $50. No, I don't charge $50. But no, there's my idol there. I've got an idol here on this hand as well.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, I've got a tattoo that I shouldn't show you that one. That's a spoiler. But and I've got like other tattoos here. Ironically, all Survivor tattoos. But I love tattoos. I should have got them when I was younger.
Yeah, I love tattoos.
Look at the ink on your
I've
arm,
got all
Jeremy.
these inks. I've got all these. Mine are sort of like bits and pieces I've collected, or when I've walked past a tattoo studio.
Like, yeah,
this one I got recently with my wife when we were drunk, and I just went, I love you. I'm going to get, her name's Crystal, and so I just got it tattooed and woke up and went, oh, there we go. Tattoo. Have I got any on my face? No.
No,
good.
not yet.
No, that's good.
There's still time.
Look, you're an amazing human being. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk to us. And look, the legalised cannabis party, we're always looking for fantastic advocates.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and we'll be a chance to elect a couple in 2027 to the upper house. So just put that in your back pocket, mate, because you're an amazing advocate for your community, amazing advocate for yourself, and I really appreciate you taking the time this afternoon to come on Into the Weeds.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, George.
Thank you.